Hello. Let's continue again with Swami Rama and a call to humanity. Playfully said, humanity, humanity. Subtitled Revolutionary Thoughts on the Direction for Spiritual and Social Reform in Our Time. And we're still going through the first chapter, which is entitled The Existence of God. And so here we go. And let's see if this will come up for me here. All righty. Brecht is here. Hello, Brecht. The study of consciousness is the study of the self, the big S self. Consciousness cannot be studied through external means, and no other principle aside from consciousness itself can study consciousness. Yeah, it's been too long. The laws and forces of nature are part of the power of the will of consciousness. All functioning forces of the universe manifest from the will of the divine. In relation to the unmanifest divine, the power of the will is one and universal. But in relation to the multiple manifest world, the power of the will is manifold. So in this world of diversity out here, this will manifests outward through me and through you and through every other person. So there's multiplicity in which the way will manifests outward, but it's one central will that's moving outward everywhere. Hello, Raj. The same is true with the powers of knowledge and action. In an individual, the basis for action is inner inspiration. If the inspiration is incomplete, impure, or has ignorance as its source, then the power of action fails to accomplish its intended task. Perfection in the power of action is entirely based on the purity of the power of will. Through constant purification, one succeeds in removing the veil of ignorance. With the removal of this veil, the power of the will comes forward and inspires the power of knowledge and the power of action. As a result of the spiritual journey from matter to soul, these three inner forces, the powers of will, knowledge, and action, which are called Icha, Jhana, and Kriya, work in accordance with one another. Consciousnness carries on its eternal drama of descent towards the world and ascent back to its source. It just keeps cycling, doesn't it? Through these three forces, consciousness alone becomes the efficient, material, and even exciting cause of creation, maintenance, and annihilation. And the efficient material cause, if you're not familiar with that, the classic example of that is that the material cause of a loaf of bread is the grain. The efficient cause is the baker. So there's two processes going on. They're both part of the causal relationship of what makes bread. And because of the material and efficient cause, there can be coming, being, and going, which is Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, which is creation, maintenance, and annihilation, which is the word Swami Rama uses here. And everything that you and I see in the world around us is constantly recycling. We recycle some products today so that we can reuse them. And so everything is constantly recycling. It's called creation, maintenance, and annihilation. Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshvara. That third one is sometimes called Maheshvar, sometimes it's called Rudra, and sometimes it's called Shiva. But the processes are the same, regardless of which way you call it. Because of these inherent powers, consciousness, God, or truth is causally related to the manifest world, and at the same time remains transcendent. So the consciousness, the Brahman, the one absolute reality, is both always that one truth, and yet at the same time it manifests outward. And so it's both manifest world and it's transcendent or beyond the world. Any object in the world has at least two factors as its cause. An object consists of its material cause. It also has something other than itself to help it manifest or evolve in that particular form. That principle is the efficient cause of the particular object. For example, a pot is made of clay, which is the material cause. This is the same as the baker. However, without a potter, the clay cannot structure itself into a pot or be fired in a kiln. Thus, the potter is the efficient cause of the pot. In order to organize, structure, or transform the material cause into an effect, the efficient cause must be self-conscious. The potter is conscious. The baker is conscious. It must have the power of will through which it can execute its powers of knowledge and action. It has the ability to create a pot or the ability to bake the bread. Through the power of will, which is the self-conscious, efficient cause, God wills the world to come into existence in a certain form. Through his inherent power of knowledge, he wills through the power of action. He materializes that will. And note one more time again, here Swami Rama is using the word he, because this is a cultural norm. We often use these terms in poetic, symbolic terms, and we turn this universal manifesting consciousness into a story. We turn it into a story so that we can call it he. And just to say that as a reminder. Now, where was I? In our worldly examples, there is nothing that can serve both as efficient and material cause. In our worldly examples, an effect always has both a material and efficient cause. So a loaf of bread always has a material cause and an efficient cause. A pot of clay, pot made of clay, always has a material and efficient cause, which are distinct from each other, like the pot having the clay and the potter as causes. However, now listen to this carefully. It's an important point here for us to contemplate on. However, in the case of the manifestation of the world, there is only one cause, and that is God or reality or any of the other different words that are used. God alone is both the material cause and the efficient cause. So if you and I understand at all this notion of efficient cause and material cause, then we can see the way in which what you and I do out in the world, we are often taking the role of the efficient cause. So we appear to be a doer of this or that and the other, and we can do all sorts of manipulation of matter out here in the world so that we can make things in the world. So you and I live in this plane of reality where the two are separate. But when it comes to the infinity manifesting outward as multiplicity, whether you call that infinity or you call it he as a God, however we refer to that, it inherently does both. That's the point that he's making here.
It's 7:15.
However, in the case of the manifestation of the world, there is only one cause, that is God. God alone is both the material cause and the efficient cause. And so if you turn that sentence around and you pose the question and you said that the that the material and efficient cause are one in relation to the unmanifest coming out as the manifest. And you said, okay, quiz time. What might we call that source that is both efficient and material cause? We say, well, let's call it God. And then let's build up a whole bunch of different mythologies. Let's do storytelling like we tell children bedtime stories. Let's do storytelling, or in modern times, let's make movies to help characterize so people can understand this process, and we will have human-like characters in there. And so let's call that God or something. As supreme consciousness, this is revealing here, this is choice of words is revealing of where Swami Rama and this tradition are coming from. As supreme consciousness, God is the efficient cause of the universe. At the same time, without relying on any material cause, God spontaneously lets the universe manifest through his, again poetic, his unrestricted power of will. Philosophically speaking, the power of will can be construed as the material cause of the universe. But since the power of will is intrinsic to God, God alone becomes the material cause as well. According to the sages, through his power of will, God alone shines in numerous forms and names. Viewed from the standpoint of the manifest world, one experiences constant change, transformation, death, and decay. But viewed from the absolute reality, big R reality, there is no change, transformation, death, or decay at all, because the ground infinity remains the ground infinity at all times, even though there is constant manifesting going on. And you and I need to contemplate on that too. And in the depths of our contemplations and meditations, all of this stuff that we're reading about here makes sense. But we look at the words here that are attempts, maybe clumsy attempts, maybe they're beautiful words, but out here in this plane of reality where we converse in language, it is very clumsy, but we're stuck with that. So we take these words and then we contemplate on them deeply internally, and we do meditation deeply, deeper, deeper, and deeper, and gradually the whole thing becomes obvious. The all-pervading eternal pure consciousness is conscious of the non-dual existence, as well as being conscious of the entire diversified manifest world. Listen to that carefully so that you can let it sink in and ponder it. Just let the words sink in. The all-pervading eternal pure consciousness is conscious of the non-dual existence, as well as being conscious of the entire diversified manifest world. They both coexist. For example, in the metaphor that we often talk about of the ocean and the waves in the ocean, as you've heard me say, I ask people, please go out to the ocean here near the ashram and look at the ocean. And you look one way and you see a whole bunch of different waves out there. You sort of blink your eyes and blink your mind, whatever that means, and you look out at the same thing, and now you see ocean. There is an ocean out there, and you blink or do something like that, and this time you see wave there and wave and wave and wave and wave, and I just see a whole bunch of waves out there. And you look at it slightly differently, and you're not seeing waves. You're seeing the totality of an ocean. And then looking at it as a yogi, you see both waves and ocean, and there's no conflict. There is unity. There is oneness called ocean, and there is the multiplicity called waves. And this is what you and I are trying to do in our contemplations. We're trying to read this stuff, not just to intellectually read a book. We're reading it because these words that we're reading are not just philosophy. They literally are instructions on how to contemplate. And then we must do this out here in the world. And this is how we do contemplation right in the middle of life. And gradually we come to see that in front of us becomes self-obvious, self-evident, that in front of me at all times of the day is unity. There is only one reality, and we see it out in front of us in a way comparable to seeing the ocean out there. And at the same time, we see all this tremendous diversity. We see all the human beings out in the shopping areas and in their cars driving down the roads and in the public places and in our workplace. In a moment, you and I see all this diversity of people, and yet in a flash, we see unity. We see the one consciousness manifesting outward through all these people in one glimpse. And so that's what we do with this. That uninvolved pure witness is God. Those who experience God within become pure mirrors to reflect God to the novice seekers. So the more that you and I are seeing the world around us in that way, the more we become a symbol to those around us who are maybe not quite so far along this journey that we're doing. Hello, Nilesh. Hi, Bruno. Hello, Mary. Hi again, Mary. Hello, Bina. Hi, Mike. Hi, Johnny. I kind of got behind there. Hi, Scott. So people are popping up, and I missed a few of them. I'm a little slow at getting in. I kind of got off on a roll here with this, but I find this stuff exciting. And this writing that he's done here, I find absolutely superb. In their hearts, God resides, and in their presence, the light of God emanates. So the more you and I hang out with this stuff, the more it's true that in your own heart, you know the awareness of this one non-dual reality that is sometimes called God for convenience sake. And when someone is in your presence, people see emanating out of you light. They can feel the presence of your wisdom. And so all of a sudden you say just the right sentence at just the right time, and some friend suddenly gets an insight about the nature of reality that they hadn't gotten before. And they say, "Oh, Nilesh, how incredibly wise you are." And Nilesh just smiles. This is what this is talking about. And in their presence, the light of God emanates. An aspirant's heart is purified. Excuse me. An aspirant's heart is purified, and his mind is turned inward when he hears about the glory of God, or Brahman, or truth, or reality, from such an enlightened sage. In the company of a sage, or a junior yogi, whatever, however you ever want to hold yourself, in the company of a sage, spontaneous faith arises, which cannot be shaken by the forces of logic or reasoning. In fact, with the awakening of such faith, the intellect surrenders itself to the virtues of the heart and humbly collects the logic and reasoning that will support and substantiate the truth. Once an aspirant is inspired and doubts are removed, or at least attenuated, he is now fully prepared to undertake spiritual practices. Wait a minute. Now that he has these glimpses of experience, now he can do practices. Notice the intrigue of what appears to be paradoxical comment. You get some glimpses of experience, and that makes you qualified to do practices. But there is a paradox in that, and it does seem to kind of work that way, doesn't it? Such an aspirant is called an awakened one, or awakened to various degrees. An awakened, listen to this, an awakened student makes effort to seek the company of sages. He prostrates, now this is a bit extreme, he prostrates at their feet and humbly requests a practice. Now, we don't have to go overboard with this. Moved by his humility and purity of heart, the compassionate sage instructs the student in the right method of practice. Without exception, such a blessed student reaches the goal. Practice is divided into three main stages. Now, I have copied and pasted this elsewhere in other places. You may have seen I created a 39 or 40 page, what I call booklet, summarizing a lot of what Swami Rama has to say. And on the front page of that booklet, I put this quote because it captures something very, very useful here. Listen carefully to this. Practice is divided into three main stages. Number one, he calls initial. And just ride with this, listen to it, and take it in. At this stage, the student thinks that he is practicing, but actually he is preparing himself for the practice. He thinks he's practicing. His so-called practice consists of collecting the necessary means and resources to begin and to stay on the path. Number two, what Swamiji here calls intermediate. At this stage, a student is fully equipped with all the resources he needs to practice. Now he's equipped. His time and energy are not involved in collecting means and learning methods. Rather, he spends his time in practice. So when you and I go through something like this text together, my hope is that it's simply reinforcing what you already know. You know something about this contemplation process. You know how to sit for meditation. But what you're doing is refreshing yourself and expanding upon that. But time and energy are not merely involved in collecting means and learning methods, because now we're doing practice. And then here in this listing, number three, Swami Rama calls it the last stage or achievement. Now, when you listen to this carefully, and you will hear for yourself that there's obviously more beyond this. So he's saying initial, number one, two is intermediate, and number three, he's saying last stage, hyphen, achievement. But listen to it carefully, and there's a gem of insight in there. At this stage, a student experiences the truth, big T, truth. Listen to this. He may have only a momentary glimpse of the truth, but at least it is a direct experience, which helps him understand the greatness of the truth. The journey's not over. Now he goes on to say, now sadhana consists of trying to maintain that state. He's had a glimpse. He's had a real glimpse of that state. And now what are you trying to do? You're trying to maintain that state. Listen to this. As his practice matures, you see, that glimpse is not the end of the journey. Now the practice does something that he's calling matures. As his practice matures, he becomes an adept over a long time. How long? Patanjali says for a very long time, without a break, without a vacation, and without a proper attitude. It's in the Yoga Sutras. Then Swamiji goes on and says, then he need not try. Then he need not try, for the experience of the non-dual reality is maintained effortlessly and spontaneously. Can you hear the sequencing in there in this last paragraph that we read there, what he called last stage or achievement? But a key word in there, I think, that he puts there is this word glimpse. So we learn the initial practices and what to do, and many of us can accidentally, it's sad to see this, but I've seen this happen. I've seen people get stuck in collecting libraries of books and looking for more seminars, more information. Give me more information. Like we're going to more college classes. I have 17 college degrees. I'm going to go get number 18 college degrees. We just keep doing intellectual studies, and we know what to do in practice. And what we need to do is step two. We know what to do. Keep practicing. And then when we reflect back over something and repeat it like we're doing here, like we often do, we keep repeating the same old stuff over and over and over again. It's just reinforcing it. But then we don't overlook those glimpses. You have a glimpse and you say, wow, I have discovered today this stuff is actually really true. You know, I really am consciousness at the core of my being. I really do have this silly habit of taking on all these false identities. But today, sitting there in those few minutes, it became utterly clear to me that my true nature is not my habit patterns, and that I am awareness itself. And you may say to yourself, how the hell do I know this? I'm just a walking around person. I'm nobody special. You know, I wasn't born into the life of Buddha or Krishna or Christ or any of these people, but yet somehow this glimpse has happened. And this is me speaking. What we want to do is don't let ego run off with it. Don't be egotistical over it, but see it for what it is. Say, wow, I just got a tiny little glimpse of what all this stuff is about. And now I know that it's true. And so what I need to do is, as he says here, I need to keep maturing in this. And gradually, someday, I will be worthy of being called an adept or a sage or something like that. Maybe not today, but today I had a glimpse and it was real and it was valid. Let me, in my internal dialogue, let me, oh mind, oh Lord, mind, let me not go off on an ego trip with this, but let me see it for what it is. I have had a glimpse of what this stuff is really all about. And I have verified for myself. Hello, I think that I've come back now. What happened? It went away. It should be coming back momentarily here. Is it coming back? Am I back? Okay, I should be back now. Now, what happened is that my video streaming up, see, I look here, this goes up line, it broadcasts up through the laptop, and over here I have an iPad sitting here so I can see the download. And when it went blank here, after, if there's a time delay through the internet, and here then this went blank, and then 10 seconds later this went blank, and I restarted the thing, and it took a minute for it to come back. So now it's back. So thank you, Raj. Now it's back. Anyway, that's these three stages. Now listen to this. Out of thousands, this I hope is encouraging to you. I hope it's inspirational and not depressing. But listen to it. Out of thousands, only a few aspirants devote time to the study of spiritual texts. Most of those who study are satisfied with the study itself. They do not practice. As a result, they become confused by the apparently contradictory teachings of the books. According to some scriptures, reality is non-dual. According to others, God and soul are two different principles. According to one, God is real and the universe is unreal, whereas according to others, both God and the universe are equally real. For non-practicing readers, it becomes difficult to figure out which philosophy is right and which is wrong. Here's the good news. Listen to this. For a practitioner, however, all of those statements are experiences along the path. They're simply experiences on the journey. Therefore, he uses these theories as guidelines for his contemplation. I hope you heard that. If not, rewind this in a minute and go through it again. Let this sink in. A practitioner never relies on philosophical thinking alone. His spiritual life consists of contemplation and meditation. For him, philosophical debates are a waste of time. Very important stuff there. I hope you heard that. And it would be worthwhile to rewind this and take that in again. I'm tempted to read it again to you, but it's there, it's on the video, and you can play back and listen to it again. It is an established fact that before reaching the realization of non-dual reality, an aspirant passes through multi-level experiences of manifest and unmanifest reality. There's a lot that comes. The experiences belong to the manifest reality, support the duality of the truth, and the experiences belonging to the unmanifest absolute reality confirm the non-dual truth. Minor differences in experiences belong to the period of transition from manifest to unmanifest and from immanent to transcendent. Through his prolonged practice and the grace of God, when an aspirant merges in his Ishtadevata, the inner reality, he experiences the non-dual truth. Excuse me. In that non-dual truth, he transcends the trinity of knower, the process of knowing, and the object of knowledge. He transcends all three of those. He becomes one with the truth. That is the state that scriptures describe in the mystic language. The knower of the truth becomes the truth. The knower and the known are one and the same. By rising above the sense of ego, an aspirant knows that which ought to be known. He realizes his identity with pure existence, consciousness, and bliss, Satchidananda. Upon that realization, he experiences the existence of the divine force in all his thoughts, speech, and actions, because every one of our thoughts, speech, and actions is of that same one consciousness. Pretty exciting stuff, isn't it? So this part too is probably worth listening to again. It's one of the reasons that this text is so profound. I think I'm going to pause here because that is so rich, and then we will continue. We'll do another time on here and finish up this chapter. This stuff is so good, isn't it? It's just absolutely rich with wisdom. And note the part in particular that we just went through that points out that for some people this stuff is merely philosophy. In other conversations recently, I have been pointing out, I probably shouldn't say this now, but I will, that in the outline from Yoga Alliance of the USA that establishes the teacher training standards for yoga teachers in America, philosophy, they study philosophy. Most of their orientation practice is referred to physical postures. But the wisdom of the Upanishads, the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita, and the wisdom of Yoga Sutras is considered to be the study of philosophy. Sorry, friends, what we just went through is the point of saying that for a practitioner, this stuff is not merely philosophy. For many people, that's all it is. And if I go to Amazon and I buy a few more philosophy books on Vedanta and Yoga and Tantra, then I'm going to understand something. Well, that's not it. This is about practice. It's about practice, practice, practice. And it's the practice of the contemplation, and it's the practice of the meditation. And from that comes those glimpses. So I'm symbolically saying that I'm hearing that voice of the goddess in the subtle realm telling me, Swamiji, push the button. So I hope that little glitch in there repaired itself okay. I know we were gone for 10 or 20 seconds, but it seems to be working now. I hope. I hope we didn't lose this, because this has been so fun. I've enjoyed this tremendously. And thank you for hanging out with me. There's still a few of you left with me, and some will listen to it later. To be continued. And I'm pushing button number 1 now. And maybe if we really surrender nicely, we can get some tiny little glimpse of that Satchidananda, of that nature of existence, consciousness, and bliss, that infinity that is to be found in the silence that is after the Om. Bye-bye. Om.